Hello, world, and welcome back to Beyond the Matrix, where I've been looking at transit charts every day. And today I want to look at a particular transit that's happening between Venus and Saturn. So I'll show you here. This is the real time clock for the day. And this glyph here is Venus, and this one here is Saturn. So I'm going to isolate those two. And you can see there's a square aspect, meaning they're 90 degrees apart. And with squares, planets have somewhat of the same goal in mind, but they are trying to approach the problem from two different places, where oppositions are completely different opposing ideas. The square aspect, from what I understand, is more something that gets on your nerves, but isn't necessarily antithetical to your whole goal. The two planets are working in a way where there's disharmony. So in Robert Hand's Horoscope Symbols, which is a book that I'm going to refer to very often, he says, as with the opposition, energies linked by a square are tremendously dynamic, and squares are significators of change. The two energies are in conflict, but unlike the opposition, it is not a head-on conflict. It seems as if the energies linked by square get in each other's way, not by going in opposite directions, but by working at cross purposes. So it's like Saturn and Venus in this aspect aren't really able to see eye to eye on every part of this, relationship, probably because it's Venus. So Venus is to do with our relationships, our creativity, children, joy, pleasure, those kinds of themes. And Saturn, I always say, is old, cold, and antique. So crumbling, dry. So bringing those two together, when I think about Venus and Saturn, I usually think about a committed relationship or putting in work for a relationship. And if it's not relationships, because it doesn't necessarily have to be, depending on where it is in the chart, it can be, do I want to make a commitment to something like a job or mortgage, whatever it is in your life. The reason it's particularly interesting is that it's so close to where this lunar eclipse is going to take place. So it's at 17 degrees of Scorpio. The eclipse will take place at 16 degrees of Scorpio. Of course, by that point, Venus will have moved forward along in Scorpio, moving towards Sagittarius. But this square aspect is going exact tomorrow when Venus hits 18 degrees. So you see, I just changed the time clock to tomorrow. So Venus will be squaring Saturn directly at that point. So that's going to be kind of the heightened portion of this energy, you could say. But these things don't have to happen on the day that it's showing in the planetary charts. They can manifest in different ways for us. So with the backdrop of course, the eclipse and Mars still being at 25 degrees of Gemini, that's all co-occurring. So I want to read from Renn Butler's The Archetypal Universe, which I will also reference a lot and highly recommend you purchase on your own. But I want to read a little bit about Venus and Saturn to um, have more impact with this meditation. So it says satisfactory relationships and quality time, Saturn being time, feelings of responsibility, Saturn, and commitment in one's relationship life, Saturn and Venus. Solid working partnerships, blending of beauty and integrity. And then the way that this can come up in kind of like a more shadowy sense is relationship tests or cooling of affection, social burdens and responsibilities, feelings of loneliness and fear of reaching out, doubts about one's attractiveness. So, either relationships can be tested, or Venus maybe isn't feeling warm and embraced by cold Saturn. It can be anything along those lines. Um, there's a couple of quotes that Renn Butler puts in this archetypal universe that I like, because it'll be pertaining to the aspect. So, for instance, here he's got Venus square Saturn, and a quote associated with that would be by Nancy Astor. I used to dread getting older because I thought I would not be able to do all the things I want to do. But now that I am older, I find that I don't want to do them. So, desires, you can hear a lot about desire in that, a lot about time and old age. And um, that's how you feel into this energy. It's, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be taken literally. I like that quote because she's talking about her own desires, which is very Venusian, things that she would want to do or things that she thought that she wanted to do. And older is really emphasizing Saturn to me there. Um, so that's an interesting way that those two energies can come together, is that apathy or indifference by the end of the whole process. Usually there's a payoff with Saturn after you've worked really hard, and the payoff is going to be whatever it is that you were working towards. So it's funny to hear it in that way where it's like, now I just kind of want to relax. Okay, I've over-explained the quote. um, I think that's where I want to leave that about Venus and Saturn. The houses that this is happening in will be different in your chart, but the signs will not. So Venus is in Scorpio. She's opposite her home sign in this faraway land, kind of off isolated. You can imagine why she would feel um, a little hurt by not having a warm embrace from Saturn, you could say. This is all metaphorically thinking. Where Saturn is in his home sign of Aquarius. This is the sign of the humanitarian. It's very rebellious and revolutionary. So it's like Saturn's got a plan. So for like the discipline, for the hard work. And yeah, it seems like Venus wants the beautiful goal in the end too. She's not in as powerful a position. So I hope that's been helpful for understanding Venus and Saturn together. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those for me to read. I'm open to constructive criticism. It will not hurt my feelings. I am doing this as my own meditation because I do it anyway, but I like sharing this part of the mindscape so that it's accessible. And I think that learning things through conversation or in a more informal way can be really helpful for developing your own understanding of these archetypes. And I think that's where the magic really happens, is when you understand your own chart to the extent that you can read it for yourself, which actually isn't really easy to do. I still struggle with it. But once you are a little bit more familiar with the glyphs, the signs, and some of the things that they mean to you, then that only develops better with time, and you start to have your own understanding of when these characters are disrupting you in your everyday life. And that's what this is about, is seeing God in everything, to include when God's playing tricks on you. So you can at least blame it on the energy with astrology. But with that being said, I am going to leave it there and prepare yourself, brace yourself, take it easy, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.